When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Unlimited fun at SportsZeno.com, a one-of-a-kind social casino and sportsbook where no deposits are needed to play. Experience the thrill of winning with real prizes that can be deposited directly into your bank account. Hundreds of Vegas-style casino games, dozens of sports with in-play predictions, player props, and same-game parlays. Register for free today at SportsZeno.com for a generous welcome offer. Visit SportsZeno.com.
SportsZeno is a social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Conditions apply. See website for details.
SportsZeno, everything worth the prediction. Unlimited fun at SportsZeno.com, a one-of-a-kind social casino and sportsbook where no deposits are needed to play. Experience the thrill of winning with real prizes that can be deposited directly into your bank account. Hundreds of Vegas-style casino games, dozens of sports with in-play predictions, player props, and same-game parlays. Register for free today at SportsZeno.com for a generous welcome offer. Visit SportsZeno.com.
SportsZeno is a social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Conditions apply. See website for details.
SportsZeno, everything worth the prediction. Unlimited fun at SportsZeno.com, a one-of-a-kind social casino and sportsbook where no deposits are needed to play. Experience the thrill of winning with real prizes that can be deposited directly into your bank account. Hundreds of Vegas-style casino games, dozens of sports with in-play predictions, player props, and same-game parlays. Register for free today at SportsZeno.com for a generous welcome offer. Visit SportsZeno.com.
SportsZeno is a social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Conditions apply. See website for details.
SportsZeno, everything worth the prediction.
Hey there, Duke fans. Welcome to episode 627 of the Duke Basketball Roundup. Did you hear the sirens just a moment ago? They were going off. They were letting you know, emergency podcast time, because the Blue Devils have rounded out the roster and picked up another hugely important transfer from the transfer portal, another experienced guy who is going to be a major contributor to next year's team. We are here to talk about it. I am Jason Evans. Joining me is Donald Wine. It is about 2:30 on Friday. We got the news just a few hours ago, Donald. Took a little time to get us both in the same place at the same time to react to this. First of all, welcome in, my friend. How you doing on this fine Friday afternoon?
It's a rainy Friday afternoon, but it has been warmed by the fact that you remember the kid meme for LeBron James? He'd be like, LeBron James. We can now go Sion James, and we can do that. And I put this on the Cameron Crazies. If we don't have a Sion James like type of cheer going next year, then what are we doing here?
I love it. That is very funny, my friend. Yeah. So the news, of course, the breaking news, the emergency sirens are going off because the Blue Devils have brought in 6'6" guard Sion James from Tulane. I'll give you the stats on him very quickly. Last season, he averaged 14 points per game, 5.4 rebounds per game, 2.7 assists per game. And this is a dude who vastly improved his 3-point shooting last season. He hit 38% of his three-pointers, which is a pretty good number. And got to be excited, Donald, about bringing in a player like this for the Blue Devils. Give me your take on him, and then I got a bunch of stats.
Look, let's first talk about the fact that this dude is built. This dude is jacked up. And when you see him, I think the first thing we saw was, man, this dude's a monster. And he kind of plays like it, right? He can shoot. You mentioned the fact that he has improved his three-point shot over the past season, going from 31% to 38% while taking more threes. He can also take it to the hole. He's good at finishing at the rim. He shot 60% from two last year and was 36, averaged 36 minutes a game, starting 30 of 31 games. But Jason, I think the one thing also that he brings to the table is a little bit of leadership, and he also brings sportsmanship. He's a guy who won the American Athletic Conference Sportsmanship Award 2 years in a row. So this is a guy who
Oh wait,
is
that's like it's like unprecedented to do that. Apparently, it's just like that award always goes to a senior or something like that. It's just like
Mhm.
it's unheard of for a guy to do that twice.
Right. And what that means is that this is a guy who understands his role, whether he's coming off the bench, whether he's starting, whether he's getting the ball in his hands every single possession, or he's called on to kind of distribute the ball. He's a guy who makes things happen, and he's a guy who's a consummate teammate, which is what we need. We need a guy. If you We talked about this on the last show, Jason. The three guys that we kind of got in the portal now, we've gotten some meanness, we've gotten some toughness, and we've gotten some guys that can fit into any position on the floor and really be able to be a glue type of player that can bring our team together with leadership experience and again a little bit of toughness. So those are the things that I'm most excited about. The fact that he's built like an Autobot is just an average plus. And when you look at the fact, Jason, our team, I just did the math, our average height next year with the guys that are on the team, and I'm including Stanley Borton and Neil Begovic into this. I know Neil Begovic has not decided whether he's leaving or staying, but maybe this weekend he does. Including those guys, we are just a few millimeters shy of an average height of 6'8".
That's
That's great.
ridiculous.
That's
That's
great because that
absurd.
means the tailor, the official team tailor doesn't have to do much. He can just bring a few options and everyone's going to fit because they're all the same size. They don't have to worry about adjusting pads here and there or suits. They can just buy a bunch of them for these guys and they'll all fit because they're all about the same height. And I think, but at the same time, they all have the versatility to play multiple positions and we can have a lot of multiple looks, a lot of looks with this team when we talk about formations, when we talk about lineups and who can come in. Sion James adds to that and really might be the final piece of this puzzle that we've been trying to put together here for the last few weeks.
All right, so let me start with this. I had two different people send this to me, and by now I'm betting that a lot of you listening have already heard it or read it, but I'm going to go ahead and repeat it anyway for folks who haven't heard it. Jeff Goodman, a very established journalist who covers all of college basketball and has great sources, said he spoke to a coach. To be clear, not a Duke coach, not a Tulane coach, a rival coach, someone who has watched Sion James. Jeff Goodman said, this is the scouting report he got on Sion James. Hold on to your hats, people. He said, I think Duke got a steal. This guy can play any position, very high basketball IQ. The knock on him was that he couldn't really shoot, but he worked on that really hard and shot 38% from three this past year. That speaks to his work ethic. The quote from the rival coach goes on and says, his defense, his ability to get deflections is insane. He has one of these guys who has the ability to affect the game in so many different ways that aren't in a box score. Honestly, this coach said, if you go into a machine and make a stereotype, a prototype of an old school Duke player, that is Sion James. He is an all-around student athlete. I mean, Donald, how could you not be excited to hear a scouting report like that on this guy? And I want to point out, as I now get into my, well, go ahead. Go. You do your thing.
I was going to say old school Duke player. That brings back a lot of memories. It brings back a lot of possibilities, right? Like, and just the style of play, right? It wasn't always flashy, right? We had some guys that were gritty. They were grimy. Not like dirty or anything, but they got in the weeds. And especially a lot of teams play Duke, they want to muck it up. They want to make it where it's ugly on the inside, physical. We experienced a lot of that. And in Sion James, and even again, when you extend it to Mason Gillis and Malik Brown, you have at least three guys out of the portal who are like, mud, love the mud. Let's play.
Exactly.
And that's what you want to see because at the same time, then we won't be intimidated. We won't be pushed off the ball. And now they have to beat us with talent. And, oh, hey, guys, we got all the talent in the world on the roster, and everyone has to look up at us.
Yeah. By the way, the guy who I sort of keep on coming back to as I hear about Sion James's game and as I watch the tape on him and things like that is Nate James. I think it's hard not to see that kind of player, very physical. One of the posters on the DBR boards on the Duke Basketball Report forum, Crazy Not Crazy, said, Sion looks like he has muscles in places where other people don't have places.
That's a perfect way to describe again Autobot. Jason, this reminds me of, remember that Cotton Bowl years ago that was at Jerry World, and Baylor was playing, and that guy who was like 6'9", 370 or something appeared on the jumbotron, and everybody's like, "Yo, that is Megatron in pure
Yeah.
life form." That's what Sion James looks like on the basketball court. Like he when he jumps, muscles extend he's like Inspector Gadget, but for muscles. Things just come out of places, and all of a sudden you're like, what is this guy doing? And all of a sudden he's dunking on you. Which I think is great. Or laying the ball in, when you're trying to push him into the third row.
Right, exactly. Sorry, let me give you a little bit of the stuff that I've dug up on him. And I'm about to tell you that this is yet another player where you go, the fit, the fit, the fit. He feels like someone who is an ideal complement to what Duke already has. So he is someone who is great at getting to the rim. 50% of his shots last season, half his shots were taken at the rim. That's a huge number for a guard. It is because he is someone who gets downhill and uses his physicality to dominate smaller guards and wings in the paint. Now, it is worth noting that is not necessarily from him being someone who has a really fancy dribble and a great handle. He's not Kyrie Irving putting you, in the spin cycle and getting past you to the rim. He is a low usage player. He's a guy who's not going to take a ton of shots for you, but when he takes those shots, it is going to be super efficient, and they're going to be off of other players setting him up to get those drives and to get those open shots. He is a great catch and shoot jumper. He was in the 89th percentile nationally, according to Synergy Sports, in effective field goal percentage in catch and shoot situations, which is elite, absolutely elite. He loves the corner three, particularly from the left side, believe it or not. He hit 50% of his corner threes from the left side of the floor. So 38% from three, really good. Great number. But 50% from that corner three, he's going to be camping out down there. And when Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster, and especially Caleb Flagg, start drawing the defense to them, Sion James is going to be sitting in that left corner ready to bury 50% of his three-pointers on you. The other thing about his game, this is a classic spot-up player. Sion James is a guy who finds a good spot on the floor, and he waits there while other guys create something, and then when they need a release valve, when there's someone who comes and the defense collapses and helps out, he is the guy they pass it to. On spot-up plays, where he's standing, waiting to take the pass to either take a shot, a three-pointer, or put it on the floor and get to the rim as the defense adjusts, Sion James was in the 95th percentile of all players nationally. I'm going to repeat that so everyone hears me clearly. When you pass to this guy and he's in a spot-up situation, 95th percentile of every player in the country. That's outrageous. That is a ridiculous number if you're looking for someone to be on the perimeter for you, to catch passes from Flagg, from Proctor, from Foster, from everyone else, and to then make a great decision with the ball. You have found one of the top 5% players of everyone in college basketball. Come on. How did we get a guy like this out of the portal? It is super exciting.
Jason, earlier you were talking about three different players, and you accidentally said Caleb Flagg. And I know you meant Cooper Flagg.
Oh, did I say Caleb Flagg?
I didn't correct you because I'm glad that you're embracing my ideal of this being sort of a Transformer situation where they all kind of combine together to form Optimus Prime. This is great. If we have a team that does that, we're going to be unstoppable next year. But I also think when it comes to Sion James, the great thing about it, Jason, is like you said, he can do damage from a number of different places, which means he doesn't have to have the ball in a certain position on the floor. And that goes into what all these other guys have. A lot of our guys are very versatile in how they can attack you, how they can beat you on defense, things like that. So I'm really excited to see where he flows in. And again, this is not a guy, we talk about this. He's not a guy who is going to come in here and automatically be the number one guy. He can challenge for a starting spot. Will he get it? Possibly not. But he also has that pedigree, right? Because he started 31 out of 31 games as a junior and only missed one last year as a senior. Now he's going to be in his grad year. So he is a guy who is capable of starting. If something were to happen where, God forbid someone gets sick or is out for a game for other reasons, we have a guy who's capable and experienced who can step in. Same with Malik Brown, same with Mason Gillis. Guys who can step in and take the reins should they need to, but also understand that their role is to back up some other players that are going to be on the floor. And I think the other thing is this opens up a world of possibilities. And we've talked about the roster and how it's constructed. it opens up a lot of different combinations for John Shire and the coaching staff when we talk about rotations, who's in on the floor. If you need an experienced lineup, we got it. If you need a small lineup, I say that in air quotes, you got it. If you want a big
There's
lineup,
no one small on the roster, man.
I don't know. Spencer Hubbard might come back and do
No,
his
he's
like
out of
17th
no.
year. No.
There's no one small on the roster. Duke going small means we're playing like, guys who are in the
all
6'6"
6'5",
to 6'8"
all 6'5" and
range.
6'6". Yeah.
Yeah. 6'6" to 6'5" to 6'8", as
But
opposed to playing 6'9" and up.
But short of guys being short enough to play at Lifetime Fitness, we have basically a lineup for every situation. We have guys for every situation. We can drop 80,000 plays and we'd have like 10 plays for every guy in every situation, and there still would be more possibilities. So I think that's what excites me about Sion James being one of the final pieces to this puzzle. Again, they may be looking for one more, but it's not going to be a guy that, as we mentioned, not going to be a guy that's going to factor into the rotation. We're at 11.
We're looking for
11 guys now. So we're pretty much closed for business in the transfer portal, so to speak. But I do think the other thing is, again, we have talked about guys getting older. We've talked about guys getting tougher. We've talked about guys having that experience and that leadership. Sion James clearly provides all three of those boxes.
Yeah. So final couple things I'll say on him. And I want to give people the full picture and allow them to really understand. First of all, his free throw percentage was not, so I'm going to give you part of the full picture. To me is, warts and all. This is a guy who struggled at the free throw line throughout his career. Not like terrible, but he's never been better than 71%. He's a career 68, 69%. That's right where he was last year. And a guy who's shooting, in the high 60s is not someone who profiles to be a guy who's going to hit 40% of his threes. I know he hit 38, better than 38.5% last year. I'm going to be honest with you. I think that might have been a little bit of an outlier. I know we heard from Jeff Goodman. He's worked on it. He's trying to get better at it. He knows that's an important part of him rising to the next level. And this is a guy who has aspirations of playing at the next level, playing in the NBA someday. I'm not sure that 38% is going to be replicable for him next year at Duke. I think that may have been a tiny bit of an outlier. Now, I don't think he's going to go down back to 32 or 33%. I think probably 35 or so is a pretty reasonable percentage for us to expect from him. But I just want folks to understand that this is not a guy who I think is going to come in, the way a Mason Gillis, who you expect to hit well over 40% from three.
I also expect that he's not going to take as many threes as he did this year, which
means he
won't
have as many opportunities.
He won't have as many opportunities, which means that his percentage could be about the same, right? Like it could be 35, 36, 37%, but he's taking fewer shots. So it's not, again, you right. kind of balance it out that way. But I think he's going to be in a situation, as we mentioned, where with so many players on the court to worry about, Sion James can be a guy that can kind of trickle to the corner and you kind of forget about him because you're focused on four of the guys on the floor. And all of a sudden the ball goes to the corner and Sion James has an uncontested three. I expect to see a lot of that sort of thing where maybe it's not all of his game, but a lot of his game being where he finds himself in positions where he's the guy that gets the ball when everyone else on the court is forgetting that he's on the floor.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about him, and again, I'm trying to give you the full picture, is that this is going to be a step up in quality for Sion James. Tulane is a decent program, but they're like top 150, and they're not a Power 5 program. Now, the AAC, the conference they played in, has some very good teams in it. Mm-hmm. And he has played against good opponents in the past, and his stats don't show like some huge drop off when they play a top tier opponent. Like he's played Houston multiple times in the past, plays teams like Memphis. I mean, he's played some really good opponents. And again, his stats don't drop off hugely, but I mean, let's be honest. The other transfers that Duke has brought in, Mason Gillis was at Purdue. Malik Brown was at Syracuse. Those are obviously, high quality programs. Tulane is not quite on that level. And it's also worth noting that Tulane struggled with, especially down the stretch last season. They lost 11 of their final 13 games. This is not a very good Tulane team. And for Sion James, he's going to be coming in a situation where he maybe was used to playing on a team where, we lost 10, 12, 14 games this season. Not a big deal. This Duke team next year probably going to be projected to win all but maybe, 2 or 3 games all season long. And those are the expectations that he's coming into. And again, just trying to give people the full picture on him. If I have any concerns, again, I'm not sure that 3-point percentage is going to be quite as high as we expected. Not a great 3-point shooter, and stepping up in quality and stepping up in expectations of the team getting wins.
And for that particular concern, which I think is valid, I think a lot of people have kind of shared that online.
You want winners. Want winners. I'm not saying he's not a winner, but
I think the fact that he's coming from a mid-major doesn't make it a concern for me for this reason, right? We normally don't go after those type of guys, but sure, we've gotten guys from Harvard, we've gotten guys from Yale, like Ivy Leagues, and they're usually, a couple of them are not really here to do much, right? They're not called on to be part of rotation. But if you remember, there was a guy from Liberty that we took 10 years ago, 12 years ago. His name was Seth Curry. And everyone had those same concerns. He turned out just fine, right? So that was at a time where a team like Liberty, you never saw on TV until they made the NCAA tournament, maybe their conference tournament for a game on ESPN 8, the Ocho. Now these guys are on national TV all the time. They play big games, as you mentioned. They play big teams every single week. And even once they get into their conference schedule, the AAC is not a slouch of a mid-major conference. They're one of the high, I guess they would be more of a high major conference when you look at what you're doing at. So I'm not concerned about him being blinded by the lights. This guy's a cyborg. As I mentioned, he's built like a machine. Machines don't wilt under lights because they don't know pressure. And this guy, I think, a part of this, coming to here is him saying, I'm ready to embrace that responsibility of being a part of a major team, and Duke feels like he's ready for that challenge.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, a little bit of transfer news involving a former Dookie, and we're going to be talking more about the transfer portal. Our last episode, which had some stuff where we talked about the portal, a lot of you had comments. A lot of you wanted to talk about it. We will continue the conversation after this quick commercial break. This episode of the Duke Basketball Roundup is sponsored by BetterHelp.
Springtime is the season that's supposed to feel like a new beginning. We have better weather, and it feels like everyone gains a boost of energy. However, for many, leaving winter behind doesn't always mean that their mood lightens up with the extra sunlight. We all carry around stress, and that stress can build as more events get added to your calendar.
That's certainly true, Donald. And with the amount of social gatherings increasing with the improving weather and more daylight, there's more pressure to be on when you're interacting with family, friends, coworkers, even strangers, even when stress has you a little bit down. And for some, getting advice from a therapist can help you tackle some of that stress without affecting you or the people you care about. That's what BetterHelp is all about. It's entirely online, and it's designed to be therapy that's convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a professional, licensed therapist. And you can switch therapists anytime you want.
So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try and find your social sweet spot. Visit BetterHelp.com/Duke Roundup today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Duke Roundup.
Unlimited fun at SportsZeno.com, a one-of-a-kind social casino and sportsbook where no deposits are needed to play. Experience the thrill of winning with real prizes that can be deposited directly into your bank account. Hundreds of Vegas-style casino games, dozens of sports with in-play predictions, player props, and same-game parlays. Register for free today at SportsZeno.com for a generous welcome offer. Visit SportsZeno.com.
SportsZeno is a social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Conditions apply. See website for details.
SportsZeno, everything worth the prediction. Unlimited fun at SportsZeno.com, a one-of-a-kind social casino and sportsbook where no deposits are needed to play. Experience the thrill of winning with real prizes that can be deposited directly into your bank account. Hundreds of Vegas-style casino games, dozens of sports with in-play predictions, player props, and same-game parlays. Register for free today at SportsZeno.com for a generous welcome offer. Visit SportsZeno.com.
SportsZeno is a social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Conditions apply. See website for details.
SportsZeno, everything worth the prediction. Unlimited fun at SportsZeno.com, a one-of-a-kind social casino and sportsbook where no deposits are needed to play. Experience the thrill of winning with real prizes that can be deposited directly into your bank account. Hundreds of Vegas-style casino games, dozens of sports with in-play predictions, player props, and same-game parlays. Register for free today at SportsZeno.com for a generous welcome offer. Visit SportsZeno.com.
SportsZeno is a social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Conditions apply. See website for details.
SportsZeno, everything worth a prediction.
Donald, we're back from the break, and the first item is this. Christian Reeves has found a home. He has picked the Clemson Tigers. We will be seeing much more of Christian Reeves going forward. Just like TJ Power went to Virginia, we have another Duke guy who has left the program and decided to stay in the ACC. Reeves goes to Clemson. The other finalist supposedly was Oklahoma, and the hot word out there on the internets, on the webs, from Zion O, who is a great Duke guy, great follow on Twitter. Zion says Christian Reeves was offered $500,000 in an NIL deal from Oklahoma. Instead, he took supposedly about half that to go to Clemson, that he thought Clemson was a better fit. A program. He liked Brad Brownell, better program for him, but big money apparently coming to Christian Reeves as he transfers to Clemson.
And we'll only see him once next year. And that will be at Little John. So I guess in a way, thank you to TJ Power and Christian Reeves for picking schools that will not come to Cameron to face us, so we don't have that awkwardness. But I honestly, in all seriousness, I think this is a good move for him. The reports about how much money he's being paid in the NIL, we were chatting about this yesterday, Jason, when we heard about it, but I'm not sure. We're not sure if that's for 1 year or for like the remaining years on his of eligibility, right? 3 years, because some of these numbers, we talked about the numbers in the last episode, how inflated they are. And there's a reason why people are throwing those numbers out there, but not telling you the details, right? It's just like in baseball, Shohei Ohtani signed a $700 million contract, and then in the fine print is like, but he's only getting $2 million a year for the first 10 years, and then he's getting $20 million for the next 10 years after that, right? They don't give you the how many years it's spread out over or anything like that. They just give you the big number because the big number is what's supposed to wow you and kind of help you magnify how good of talent that you're bringing into your program. But I do think whatever money he's getting, he absolutely deserves it, and hope he does well at Clemson, I guess, unless when we come play them down a Little John, and then in a couple years when he comes Cameron.
All right, Donald, I know you wanted to talk about this a little bit. I want to thank everybody who has written to us. We've gotten just a deluge of emails about the comments that we made on the last episode about the transfer portal and about some of the decisions that some of the Duke guys made. Where they felt like they had to leave the program. I recounted the private conversation I'd had with a parent of one of the players who had entered the transfer portal from Duke, and a number of people. First of all, people so thankful, and I really appreciate that. Where people said, we like that you guys gave us the honest truth, and that you gave us a story that we wouldn't have otherwise gotten to hear because of your sources. And I mean, one of the gifts that we got, Donald, in doing this podcast for as long as we've done it is that, we get the confidence of people sometime, and they come to us and they talk to us. And when we clear it, when we know it's appropriate, and we know it's the right thing to do, we share it with all of you. But I just wanted to thank everybody who had reached out to say, nice things and to have comments and such. And then I know you wanted to talk about one aspect of all that stuff. So go ahead and take the floor, my friend.
Yeah. And on the Duke Basketball Report forums, there's a huge thread that I still have to go through the second half of it. But I've been following it for the
literally
last days.
Hundreds of posts from people who are commenting on the conversation that I had with a Duke parent. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing that I want to focus on, and it's not just on the forums, it's everywhere on the internet, at least in Duke world, that I want to focus on is Jeremy Roach. And I think there's a lot of people out there who, for some reason, still think that him leaving Duke to go to Baylor, or I don't think Baylor is the issue, but him leaving Duke to finish out his career somewhere else is this huge indictment on what the program is or what they're doing, and that he may have been pushed out or anything like that. Make no mistake. First of all, I think, Jason, I think you tried to clarify this on the show. I think you tried to clarify this online, but nobody was forced out. right? But the perception from some of these parents is that due to some of the things that were out of their control, or, you know, things that they had during these conversations, that they felt that way. And it's totally fair to feel that way.
Yeah. So I can be clear about this, because you're right. Some people have been confused about this. I am not aware. I have not heard of any player who went into John Shire's office and Shire said, "Hit the bricks, buddy." I think with every single one of them, John Shire talked to them extensively about what he saw as their role for next year. Some players heard that and said, "I don't know if that's the role I really want to play. I'm going to go look elsewhere." And they then talk about that as being forced out to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think in any case was there a player that John Shire said, "I don't want you in my program anymore." There is not even a hint of that from anyone that I have talked to. So yeah, we should be really clear about this notion of forced out. Is, you know, it was a decision in every single case. All 7 of these guys made a decision based on what they wanted for their career and for their, you know, for next season for them. And they decided that wasn't going to work at Duke, but they were not told to leave by anyone associated with the Duke program.
Simply put, nobody was fired here, right? There was conversations that nobody was fired. But when it comes to Jeremy Roach, there's a lot of people who still think that there's something sinister going on with regards to his departures. So I want to focus on that for just a minute.
By the way, even if not sinister, Donald, what they think is there must be something terribly wrong. Mm-hmm. Where there's smoke, there's fire. They think there's something
for him
wrong
to not want to stay. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I think again, and we've talked about this when he decided to leave, and we never really discussed him like actually going to Baylor, or we kind of mentioned it, but we didn't have a full discussion about him going to Baylor, because I don't think going to Baylor is what's important here. The fact is, people are focused on the fact that he's leaving. And I think when it comes to Jeremy Roach, when he got here in 2020, right? He did not know that he was going to have a 5th year. Think about that. There was no COVID yet. There was no COVID year happening. There was no NCAA saying you guys get a freebie and you get a redo, right? Nobody was expecting what we went through in March to, till 2020 until now, right? Nobody expected that. So for people to assume that him leaving before his
by the way, Donald, sorry, just to quickly correct, it wasn't 1920, it was 2021. But yes, go ahead.
Yes. No, what I mean is he came in March. I'm sorry, he came in 2020.
Yes, he came in the fall of 2020.
Fall of 2020, right. But again, 2020, we did not know what we're going to expect. When he committed to Duke, when he stepped foot on campus, there was no COVID years applicable yet. The NCAA had not bestowed that upon anybody. So for him, he was going to be here for 4 years. He was going to play for 4 years. In his mind, I'm sure he was thinking, I could go to the NBA draft or have other things, but my commitment to Duke would be for 4 years. Just like everybody who is at Duke, everyone who matriculates to Duke as a freshman goes for 4 years. They say, hey, I'm going to be here for 4 years. I'm going to graduate. I'm going to get a degree. Jeremy Roach has gone to Duke for 4 years. And on this weekend, Jason, as we speak, he will be getting a degree from Duke University. I think that's great. I think everyone should be applauding that. And I think everyone should celebrate that. The fact that we have talked for years about how so many of these guys decide to leave Duke for the NBA and not walk across that stage and get their diploma, or walk across the stage at their various departments to get their diploma. And the fact is, we have a guy who is doing that and deciding to take his 5th year to go somewhere else. Put it this way, ladies and gentlemen, this is how this is being viewed, right? Duke has these metrics, and Duke has a metric about, okay, when your class graduates, how many of them go on to grad schools, how many people go on to jobs, how many people, and they kind of average that, right? And so your friends who, of course, we had Chris Duhon in my class, so he got to skew our numbers a little bit, right? Class 94 had Grant Hill. He skewed their numbers a little bit, but they say, hey, the average, first job out of college for the class of 2024 is X amount of thousands of dollars. That's what he did. He went and got a job after college. His job happens to be playing basketball for 1 year at Baylor. And I think for going to grad school, going to another job, everyone has to leave Duke at some point. And I hate that I had to leave Duke 20 years ago. I literally graduated 20 years ago yesterday. And I hate to this day that I had to leave that place. But to grow as a person, you have to leave home. And that's what Jeremy Roach is doing. And I know that stings for some people, but I do think that it was not anything that Duke did that forced him to leave. I think it was him understanding I've had 4 years. I have decided that it is my time to go. And again, I don't have any inside information on this. I'm just, kind of projecting for a minute. But he's saying that I wanted to go and experience something else for my last year before I decide to carry on with the rest of my life, whether that's being a professional in the NBA, whether that's being a professional abroad, whether that's going to get a job on, using some of the many connections that he probably has at this point. But at the same time, him leaving is not an indictment on the program. Him leaving is actually something that the program should hold up in high esteem and say, we had a kid who came here 4 years. He took us to a Final Four. He put banners in the stands. He's one of the most beloved players in recent memory for Duke because he stayed all 4 years. He is a model citizen. He's a model student. He's graduating from one of the best universities in the world. And he's going to be just absolutely amazing in this world. And he's starting out by doing that down at Waco, Texas. That's the only sidebar to this. And I think when people think that because he has an extra year that he has to take it at Duke, that feels a little unfair. In fact, it feels a lot unfair because you would not expect any student that isn't playing college basketball at Duke to stay for their graduate year. You would not expect that at all. So for you to expect it, and you're not expecting to give Jalen Blakes either, right? Who is graduating a year early. He's basically junior. He's graduating again, going somewhere else. You're not expecting that of him. We're not hearing a lot of people going, "Oh my God, I can't believe he wouldn't use his eligibility here." And it's because Jeremy Roach was a starter. Jeremy Roach was a two-time captain. Jeremy Roach was one of the leaders of the team, and Jalen Blakes was a guy who didn't factor into as many games as Jeremy Roach did, but again, still a guy who worked his tail off for the school, came in and accepted his role, something that we ask everybody to do, and he did it without any sort of expression on his face other than a smile. That's what you want. But the fact is, Jeremy Roach is being singled out here, and I don't like it. I don't like the fact that he's being singled out. He has earned the right to graduate from Duke University and spread his wings and fly. And that's exactly what he's chosen to do. And as I've mentioned a month ago, when all of this portal talk started, I think everyone should respect Jeremy Roach for the decision that he made. It was difficult. It was difficult for him to make that decision to leave Duke to go somewhere else. But in the end, Jeremy Roach has to do what's best for him. And what he thinks is best for him is to go to Baylor to play one more year of college basketball. I will cheer for Jeremy Roach. I may not cheer for Baylor. That's another story. But I will cheer for Jeremy Roach to do well in everything. And I pray that we don't see him in a tournament somewhere down the line. I pray that he does as well as he possibly can, and he uses that to springboard to the NBA and get drafted. Maybe he won't get drafted, but this is the chance that he's taking to say, hey, my chance might not be better than staying at Duke, but it might be a different path that he's taken by going to Baylor and opening up another world of connections. So I hope that he does well down there. And I think everyone, this is my personal opinion, I think everyone should respect the fact that he's doing this and wish him well and be happy for him, because this weekend is the weekend to be happy for everyone who was getting a degree from Duke University. And one of those degrees will say Jeremy Roach on it. We should be happy about that.
You've stated it beautifully, my friend. And I will just add one more thing to the people who think, oh, there's something rotten. There's something going on in the Duke program that we don't like because a guy like Jeremy Roach has decided to move on. Well, you're indicting a whole heck of a lot of other programs as well. Hey, what about Tulane? Sion James is coming to Duke from Tulane after spending 4 years at Tulane. Are you telling me that Tulane is a program with a problem? How about Purdue? Mason Gillis, 4 years at Purdue. Graduates, moves on to Duke. How about Ryan Young? 4 years at Northwestern. You tell me that Chris Collins has problems up there at Northwestern? Then Ryan Young, after graduating from Northwestern, comes to Duke. How about Jordan Goldwire? Was at Duke, graduated, moved on to Oklahoma. Where was the outrage? Where was everybody furious when that happened? How about DJ Horn, who played for Bobby Hurley at Arizona State and then left Arizona State, after 4 years and graduating and moved on to NC State, where he was a thorn in our side last year. How about Cormac Ryan at Notre Dame? Played for Mike Bray his entire career, then left Notre Dame and went to UNC last year after 4 years after graduating. This is silliness. The idea that Jeremy Roach is some eye-opening new thing that's happening in college basketball and that it says something about the Duke program. I know people who are saying, like, this is a stain on Duke. People are going to bring this up in recruiting to recruit against us. I'm like, have you lost your mind? Are you not paying attention to what college basketball is doing nowadays? It is almost more common for a guy to spend 4 years at a program and then move on for his fifth year than it is for a guy to stay. Andrew Carr, I just remember Andrew Carr at Wake Forest just left to go to Kentucky. It's happening everywhere. And Jason, it's no different with Jeremy Roach.
And Jason, at the same time, we have clowned Leaky Black and Armando Bacot for 4 years, because for 4 years they have been like, I'm leaving. And now I'm kidding, I'm coming back. RJ Davis is doing the same thing, right? Seth Trimble's doing the same thing. They just say, oh, we're leaving UNC, and then they're like coming back. So they have like 18 senior nights between 3 people. Like, we clowned them for that. And yet we wanted Jeremy Roach to do the same. And a lot of people out there, frankly, expected him to do the same thing. And I think that's where they lose me, is the expectation that because he has a year of eligibility, that he has to use it at Duke. It would have been great to have him for another year. Promise you, we would have absolutely been thrilled if he stayed for another year. But we're just as happy for him that he is going to test his mettle somewhere else. And again, another big conference in the Big 12. And, maybe Baylor has a good season. VJ Edgecombe, he probably has a decent relationship with him, given that VJ Edgecombe had come to visit Duke and was part of that recruitment process before he decided to choose Baylor, right? So maybe there's some, there's some reasons or ties for him to go there as opposed to anywhere else. But at the end of the day, that's his choice. And that's not it's a choice that I made too. I didn't stay at Duke to go to law school. I went to Miami. Part of that was I didn't get into Duke, but I'm not mad at that. But but at least I had a choice, right? I had a choice to be like, do I stay and fight, or do I go somewhere else? And I go, hey, sometimes you got to spread your wings and go somewhere else to understand what it feels like to miss home. That man has been at Duke for 4 years, and he probably misses Leesburg, Virginia a lot, right? Because he comes home very often. But now he's going to understand what it's like to leave his second home. And everyone has that feeling. It sucks. But that's something that part of growing up and being a part of that, become an adult process, is making those decisions what's best for you and not necessarily what's best for a fan base. And I think for Jeremy Roach, he's going to do well at Baylor, and we're going to support him, and we should support him in that.
I love it. All right. With that, we wrap it up on the latest edition of the Duke Basketball Roundup. I am Jason Evans. He is Donald Wine. I'm going to tell you guys, I tell you all the time, you got to listen to me. You need to like and subscribe. Got to subscribe so you can get every one of these episodes the moment they come out, because we're just doing nothing but spinning gold for you here every single time. Not quite. We're trying. Also, we love those emails. It's the off season, but the inbox is still fired up. dbrpodcast@gmail.com. That is how you reach out to us. We respond to almost every one of them. We try. Sometimes we miss one here and there, but we try to give you guys consideration, respond as often as we can. We appreciate all of you. The Duke basketball roster for next season appears to be set. And we're going to be talking extensively over the coming weeks about what that roster is going to do and what we're expecting from them. We got a lot of content, even though it's the off season. I'm Jason. He is Donald. You can hear him in the background. They are the Duke band. They're playing us out and taking us home.